All right, so let's continue our biology most repeated questions in JAMB. And one of the topics that is repeated often is ecological succession. Ecological succession. So I'll be taking the questions and explaining with the answers. So the first question here is students trying to find out the order in which organisms appear on a cleared plot is studying one of the following. Listen again. A student trying to find out the order in which organisms appear on a cleared plot of land, on a cleared plot, is studying one of the following. A, ecosystem. A says ecosystem. B says food chain. C says food web. D says succession. So a student trying to find out the order in which organisms appear on a cleared plot is studying one of the following. So what is the answer to that question? Succession, right? Succession is actually the gradual replacement until a climax stage is reached. Now, ecosystem, we are just looking at interaction between living and non-living components, right, of an environment. Food chain, we are just looking at feeding relationship, linear feeding relationship. Food web, we are looking at complex feeding relationship. But succession, we are looking at the order in which organisms appear. Okay, from leaching to this one, to shrubs, to this one, leaching to grass, to shrubs. So we are just looking at the order in which organisms appear. That is the answer to that question. So the answer is succession. Next question. Which of the following is true of a climax community? Which of the following is true of a climax community? A, it persists until the environment or climate changes. B, it changes drastically from one year to the next. C, it is the first stage in succession. D, it is made up of the tallest trees and the smallest animals. What's the answer to that question? What's the answer to that question? Which of the following is true of a climax community? Is it persists until the environment or climate changes? B, it changes drastically from one year to the next. C, it is the first stage in succession. D, it is made up of the tallest trees and the smallest animals. What's the answer? All right, now always use elimination method. Now look at D. It is made up of tallest trees. Whereas climax stage is the final stage. When they say this is the climax of the story, the ending point, the most important point of the story, right? Climax stage is actually the last stage in succession. It's also known as a stable community. Everywhere is stable. Now this says it is made up of the tallest trees and the smallest animals. Tallest tree we can agree. But smallest animals, what happened to the big animals? So that one is out. C says it is the first stage in succession. Is climax stage the first stage? No, it's not the first stage. B says it changes drastically from one year to the next. Is it changing drastically? No, we say climax, stable. So it's not changing from year to year. A says it persists until the environment or climate changes. That's the answer to that question. Climax stage remains the same. Remains stable until the climate changes. So it is actually a stable community. Number 3. Which group of plants would be the first colonizers in an ecological succession, changing rocks to soil? This question has been repeated for a long time now. Which group of plants would be the first colonizers in an ecological succession, changing rocks to soil? A, mosses. B, ferns. C, lichens. D, grasses. So what's the answer to this question? Lichen. Lichen is always the first colonizers most times. Lichen. And you know lichen is what plus what? Algae plus fungi will give us lichen. So symbiotic relationship between algae and fungi gives us leaching. So leaching is always the first colonizer converting rocks to soil. So they have what it takes to break down rocks to soil. All right. The next question. Ecological succession ends with the formation of a stable dash. Ecological succession ends with the formation of a stable dash. A. Niche. B. Population. C. Pioneer community. D. Climax community. Climax community. Stable climax community. That's the answer to that question. Next question. Colonization of a bare rock surface is termed dash. Colonization of a bare rock surface is termed dash. Who can answer without the option? A says evolution. B. Specialization. C. Primary succession. D. Secondary succession. Primary succession. Let me explain. Primary succession is just like starting life where life was not existing. Evolution is gradual changes that take place in an organism leading to a more complex organism. Primary succession. Now check a bare rock. Rock. Was there plantation on this bare rock before? But leaching will be here. Leaching will now break down the rock. You now have soil. So small plants can now grow. Small plants can now grow. Before you know, shrubs are coming up. Before you know, small trees are now coming up until you have a climax stage. So you are starting life from where life was not existing, right? That type of succession is called what? Primary succession. But a succession in an abandoned farmland is what type of succession? Secondary succession, because in an abandoned farmland, there are plants still there, right? Other things, grasses are there. The grasses now will now grow into tall plants and the rest. Do you get? So this type where vegetation was already existing, you call that secondary succession. But starting life from where there was no life, that is primary succession. That's the simplest way to put that. All right. Next question. An ecological succession often leads to dash. This question has always been repeated too. So if you've been doing past question, you must have seen this. An ecological succession often leads to dash. What's the answer? It's a climax community. Let me read the option. An increase in species diversity. B. A decrease in species diversity. C. An unstable community. D. The dispersal of species. An ecological succession often leads to what? Is it increase in species diversity, decrease in species diversity, unstable community, dispersal of species? What's the answer? Increase in species diversity. Increase in species diversity. Ecological succession will often lead to increase in species diversity. You don't have only leaching there throughout. Leaching is advancing to something. Something will advance to something. Something will advance to something. Next question. The question says secondary succession is much faster than primary succession because that. Secondary succession is much faster than primary succession because that. Remember, secondary succession takes place where there was already vegetation, right? It's like an abandoned farmland. But primary succession is starting life afresh, starting life from scratch. So secondary succession is much faster than primary succession because that. A. Pioneer colonizers are more in number. B. Soil is already present. C. Secondary species require less nutrients. Secondary species require less nutrients. D. Species competition is increased. So what's the answer?
B.
B. B. Soil is already present.
Yes.
It's a lie. That's not the answer.
That's the answer.
That is not the answer. The answer is actually A. Pioneer colonizers are more in number. In an abandoned farmland, which is an example of secondary succession, we have pioneer colonizers already present plenty. Yet in rock, like in the primary succession, maybe we can have leaching. We can have leaching will not be breaking this thing down until. But here, pioneer colonizers are more in number. It's not because the presence of soil. What if the soil is the one that no plant has existed in before? Yes, it's possible. Yes. So the answer is Pioneer colonizers are more in number. The next question. Climax communities in a biotic succession are usually characterized by dash. Climax communities in a biotic succession are usually characterized by dash. A. Constant change in the appearance of the communities. B. Different species that are constantly changing. C. Stable composition of plant and animal species. D. Rapid change in the plant and animal species. C. A stable composition of plant and animal species. Because climate, we are talking about stability, right? It's not stable. The next question, the most likely first colonizers of a bare rock are dash. The answer is what? Lichens. Lichen. Lichen is the answer. The next question. Lichens must be there because lichens is the main thing that is there. Like in this option, we put mosses, fence, lichens, fungi. Mosses is classified under what kingdom? Bryophyta, right? We classify Bryophyta as the amphibians of the plant kingdom, right? And we divided Bryophytes into mosses, liverwort, and what? Hornwort. So that is very important. The pioneer, next question. The pioneer organism in ecological succession are usually dash. You see how they are repeating it. The answer is what? Lichens. Lichens is the answer. The next question here, question number 12. During ecological succession, the pioneer organisms are usually do what? Lichens. You see how they are repeating it. Next question, number 13. The pioneer and early colonizers during a succession in a terrestrial habitat may include dash. Listen to this one before you order to now, the pioneer and early colonizers during a succession in a terrestrial habitat may include dash. A. Microscopic organisms. B. Trees and shrubs. C. Mosses and liverworts. D. Herbs and shrubs. The pioneer early colonizers what? Microscopic. Say it with both men and say it with your mind. So they are faces. The pioneer and early colonizers during a succession in terrestrial habitat is usually mosses and liverworts. The bryophytes. The bryophytes, they are the amphibians of the plant kingdom, right? These are the early, the most primitive. They will not advance to the next like that. In an ecological succession, algae, lichens, mosses are referred to as dash. In an ecological succession, algae, lichens, mosses are referred to as dash. A. Saprophytes. B. Autotrophs. C. Pioneers. D. Heterotrophs. So what's the answer to that question? They are what? They are pioneers. They are the starters. The people that start it. Lichen, algae, mosses. You know, mosses, algae, they are terrestrial. Lichens, that rock. So next question. Terrestrial. And okay. Rock is found under edaphic factors. That's why you see soil and terrestrial. We are talking about outside water on land. Terrestrial habitat is now divided into arboreal, that is air, edaphic, and solid. So one of the characteristics of primary succession is that dash. It's dash. One of the characteristics of primary succession is that A. Starts with fairly complex organisms. B. Takes a shorter time to reach climax. C. Starts on a bare surface. D. Starts on already colonized surface. The answer is what? C, right? C. It starts on a bare surface, primary succession. D. It starts on already colonized surface. The one that starts on already colonized surface is what? Secondary succession. Next question, two more questions to go. A succession that occurs in an area where there are no pre-existing communities called primary succession. Then we need option. Number 17, the last one. One of the characteristics of secondary succession is that it dash. One of the characteristics of secondary succession is that it dash. A. It starts on the bare surface. B. It takes longer time to reach climax. C starts on already colonized surface. D starts with low organisms. C starts on already colonized surface, right? Like that one on an abandoned farmland. So basically, these questions, if you familiarize yourself, you see why I said if you can solve over 25 years of past question or over 25 years of past question, you cannot score less than 300. It's not possible. Because JAMB is not setting any new question again. All they do is just to reshuffle questions. So reshuffle, they have question bank that they reshuffle and send, and it's some past questions. So this period, familiarize yourself with past questions. A lot of past questions, and you get to the hall, you just see in the hall, it's just be you're answering past questions because it's a reshuffle question they are giving you. Questions they've already seen before. Alright, so that's